We got it. All right. We got it? All right. Welcome to WASA Distance Education. This is MEL3E, grade 11 math, workplace and everyday life. I'm Pete. I'm your teacher. And just to be right up front here, this is a pre-recorded class. So don't call in because I'm not actually in the studio. Okay, so I'm traveling today, and so instead of not having a class, we're just going to have this pre-recorded, which means that depending on how far we got yesterday, I'm not quite sure if this is going to sync up, but we'll sort it out on Wednesday when I come back. So today, for this class, this pre-recorded class, we're going to look at Unit 2 and do a review for Unit 2. Okay. Now, if you'll remember, Unit 2 is all about buying things and shopping and making informed buying decisions. So we looked at unit prices, so how to tell for different size packages what was the best bargain, and also how to say convert Canadian money to US and US money to Canadian if you're doing some online shopping and or cross-border shopping. And that's it's always important to do that kind of comparison, but it's especially important now with our Canadian dollar quite a different um, quite different compared to the U.S. I think it's quite a bit lower now, so it's more important than ever to be able um, to do the conversions. Okay, because if you're going to buy something and it seems like a bargain, if you get something that's much cheaper in the United States and you buy it, by the time you pay the shipping, by the time you pay the exchange rate, and possibly even some duty, some GST or whatever they charge you at the border, it may actually end up being more expensive if you're not, if you're not careful. Okay, so that's why it's important to work things out. So let's take a look then at the different topics that we covered in Unit 2. Okay, so the first one, Lesson 6, was buying decisions. So here we looked at making comparisons of items. Okay, so and in order to make a comparison, we actually want to use the unit price. Okay, when we're doing a comparison of two different packages or even two different products that maybe just it's just like jars of coffee. If you don't have a favorite, then you can just pick whichever one's cheapest, has this lowest unit price. Okay. Now, part of the issue when we're comparing unit prices is to figure out what the units are, because we have to actually divide the price by the number of units in the in the package. Okay. So an example here is $4.19 per kilogram. That means that the unit is a kilogram. Okay. So if you were comparing a 1 kilogram box of product compared to say a 4 kilogram box, in order to find the 4 kilogram the unit price for the 4 kilogram box, you really have to divide that by 4. Then you have the unit price of the 1 kilogram box and the unit price of the 4 kilogram box. Okay, you're still getting 4 kilograms of the product, and it is going to cost you more, but it's the unit price, right? Sometimes, if you're a real savvy shopper, and this does happen, it's happened with me. It's if you need, I went in, I needed a pound of baking soda, and I went into the store and I saw the pound of baking soda, and then I saw that you had a special on a 250 gram, or not a pound, sorry, a kilogram, and then they had a special on a 250 gram boxes. And I quickly did the math on that, and it was actually about 50 cents cheaper to buy 4 boxes of the 250 gram baking soda, right? 50 cents, and that's, I don't know what amount of savings it was. It was probably about a 25 or percent savings or something. So if you're not picky about something like that, you can sometimes save you money. And if you always do it, whenever you walk into a store, you always check that unit price. Then you're going to save money almost every time you go to the store. Okay, so and it's over the years it adds up, right? And then it adds up to an extra deposit for your pension plan, or it adds up to some maybe a nice meal at a restaurant or something. So that's what we're talking about. We want to give you the sort of the skills to be able to make these sound financial decisions. Now, when you go into some stores, they have the unit price written on the shelf, and over the years, I've learned to be pretty skeptical of those prices. I don't know, they're not always accurate, what I found. So, it may depend on the store. Years ago, when they first came out, and it was law of the land, I think, for the price to be on the shelf, and then they were printing unit prices, um, they they were accurate, but now I don't know. Now, if we look at the example here, we have to know how they're selling us the product. Okay, so paper towels are not sold by the pound or the kilogram or the ounce or anything like that. They're sold by the roll, right? So if you pick up a package of paper towels, it'll say on it 2 rolls or 8 rolls or 24 rolls. You might have to have someone help you pick that one up. And you actually see that quite a bit in, I know, Walmart and um, the extra foods. They do tend to put stuff like that on sale, right? And you'll walk right into the store, and there's a big pile of packages of paper towels or toilet paper or whatever. And so the idea is that you see that big pile, and it looks like it's a good price. But it's really important that you still do the math and come up with the unit price and then compare it to, say, the brand you normally buy, and compare it to some other packages, okay, to make sure you really are getting a bargain. Okay, so in the case of paper towel, if there's a 2-roll package, $4.90, you're going to come up with the unit price by dividing by the number of units in the package. In this case, it's the rolls, by the total price. Okay, so for the first example, 498 for the 2-roll pack, you divide the 498 by 2 by the number of units in a package, and you end up with $2.49 per roll. Okay, and for the 16-roll package, it was $34.99, which is a lot more money, but you divide that by 16, and it turns out to be quite a bit less, $2.19 per roll. Okay, so you're going to save a fair bit of money on the 16-roll package for each roll that you use. Now, the downside to this is that you are walking out of the store with a giant um, package of paper towels. If you use a lot of paper towels, that's great. If you don't, you're going to have to store them somewhere. So there's something to think about. If you buy, you're buying the bigger package based on unit price, you still have to think about uh, where am I going to store it? Is it going to get in our way? Because maybe it's not worth it to save a few pennies if you're tripping over this big pile of paper towels, right? Or if it's something perishable, are we going to be able to use it before it kind of goes off? Okay, so there's something to also keep in mind. For dry goods, for paper products, for things like instant coffee and stuff like that, it's you can get a pretty good deal. And I would tell you, there's probably about 10 jars of instant coffee in my house right now, up on a high shelf out of the way, and it's just because we found a bargain on it one day, and we just bought a whole bunch of them, okay, to save some money because it's something we use a lot. So that's how all of this works. And it can become just a habit of doing that math. You can always whip out your phone and do the calculation. You don't need to do it all in your head. Okay. Now, here's another example where they have different sizes of chip bags, right? So if all you need is a small bag of chips, then really, maybe you're going to have to just pay the price for the small bag of chips. But if you need more chips than just a small bag, then you can start looking at the unit prices. Now, one other thing that I want to point out when you're doing these calculations, we typically round money amounts to two decimal places, which is the dimes and the pennies. But when we're looking at unit prices, we really want to keep a few extra decimal places because sometimes the unit prices are fairly small. They're fractions of a penny. So in that case, we want to keep, as many decimal places as we can. And this is a good example of that. Now they've rounded things. They've changed them in from dollar amounts to penny amounts by multiplying by 100, which is fair enough. So we can take a look and compare the penny amounts. Keep in mind that these are it's just slightly more than 1 penny unit price. And if we look at them, the difference in the unit price there is pretty small. Okay, so there's something else to be aware of, right? If the difference is half a cent, I think it's between the smallest bag and the biggest bag, it's only a half a cent per gram. Um, well, maybe it'll make a bit of a difference, but it's not a humongous difference. So then you have to ask it, is it worth it? Of course, the best price is always going to be the lowest unit price, but is it really worth walking out of the store with 20 little bags of chips when really you just wanted a couple of big bags? Okay, and that's the sort of other question you have to ask. Okay, but the best buy will always be the lowest unit price. Okay, so now in the case, sometimes it might take a little bit of kind of thinking about stuff to come up with the unit price. So let's take a look at this support question. Support question 1. We want to know the unit price. So it's 2 kilograms of carrots for $2.59. Now, the unit price there, I mean, it is carrots, but they don't tell you how many carrots. And even if they did, the fact that they're giving you a weight of carrots, that's the units. Okay, so the units are kilograms. Okay, not 2 kilograms, but kilograms. Okay, so that's what you're going to divide into the price. So it's 259 divided by 2 kilograms, and then what you end up with is a dollar amount per kilogram. Okay, so, and don't forget the units, because unless it's, well, even if it's something like a roll of paper towel, the units are per roll, right? In this case, it's per kilogram, so it shows it there. Now, so try, if you see, like if it says 2 kilograms of carrots, and if they try and give you a number for the number of carrots, they're not selling it by the number of carrots. They're not selling you 10 carrots for 259. They're selling you 2 kilograms of carrots. There might be 10 carrots in every bag, but that's not how they're selling it. Okay, so we have to be really aware, and sometimes look at the labels of things to see, because on the front, prominently displayed somewhere, there's going to be the unit. Okay, it's going to tell you what it is, right? 10 pounds of apples, so many grams of cereal, right? So many muffins. You buy a box of muffins, it'll say 10 muffins or 8 muffins. So that's per muffin, right? Or unit. Okay. The other thing that if we go through this course material, they always seem to show that um, almost all the time they're showing that the biggest package is the best buy. It's the lowest unit price. Most of the time that's correct, but as I pointed out in my example with the baking soda, in that one case, because there was a special on the smaller boxes, it turned out that the smaller box was a better buy. Usually it's the bigger box, the bigger package, that's the better buy, that has the lowest unit price, but you have to really want to check because that's sometimes, if they put the smaller package on special, that's exactly, you'll find out that that's the better buy. You buy 2 of the smaller ones. Okay. Now, the other thing we looked at in Unit 2 was um, the stores are always competing for your business, and even online now, they're always competing for your business. So they're trying different things. They're trying to induce you. They're trying to incentivize you to buy their product at their store, right? So if you're looking for some winter boots, right, there's probably lots of stores where you can buy winter boots. You could go to MEC. You could probably get some at Canadian Tire. You probably get some at Walmart. There's lots of places to buy winter boots. So how how does Canadian Tire get you to use their store? Okay. Well, Canadian Tire has their Canadian Tire money, right? The store money. Okay, so if you pay in cash or anything that looks like cash, like your debit card, they will give you a certain percentage of your purchase as store money. Now, the cool thing about that is if they just gave you a discount, okay, on your boot, let's say they gave you 5% discount on your boots. Well, that's great, but then the next time you needed something, maybe you need some mittens now, you have no particular reason to go back to Canadian Tire. You're going to go and you're going to look at other stores again. But if they give you 5% of your purchase for your boots as Canadian Tire money, now when you're looking for something else, well, you got this Canadian Tire money to spend, which actually gives you a discount on whatever else you're going to buy. Okay, so that's the sort of incentive that they can offer you. Okay, and uh, for shopping in a certain store. Okay, the other one they'll do is discounts, and this happens quite a bit. And one of the things I try to do, and as a matter of fact, I'm doing it today. I want to buy something at a store. It hasn't been on sale, right? I was waiting for sales, that didn't happen. So what I decided to do was put the thing in my shopping cart on the store. I logged in with my own account because I've shopped there before. I put it in the shopping cart and then I left it. Now, sometimes, not always, but sometimes once it's in your cart for a little while, they'll send you a notice saying, oh, you forgot to, you still have something in your shopping cart, your online shopping cart. You didn't buy it. Do you need some help? But sometimes they also say, if you buy it now, we'll give you 5% off. We'll give you 2% off. We'll give you, throw in this thing. So on that would be a good incentive to buy the thing right away. Okay, so I'm trying it. It's not working so far. So but I'm gonna leave it there for at least another day, and see if they give me a discount. Okay, um, and so and that's the way to try, right? And that way, because this product that I want to buy is not really discounted in any store, all I can do is that, right? I can try and get a particular store to either give me a bit of a discount or maybe throw in some freebie that's valuable to me. Okay. Now, other stores, they'll give you a discount. They'll give you a card. Okay. Mark's Work Warehouse does that, right? They give you a card. So it's not store money, but it's just a discount on your next purchase. And usually, if you're shopping in January and you go there and you buy $50 worth, then they'll give you a card. And then if you that starts in February. So if you come back in February, you get a certain percentage off. Okay. So that's a discount. Okay. Now, the other thing, and grocery stores are really good about that, coupons. They give you a coupon, then you go there and you'll get a certain percentage off. Manufacturers also give you a coupon, right? So if I buy some cereal, maybe there's a coupon on the box, and then I cut that coupon out and I come get some cookies or something, something different. Maybe it's a coupon for the same product. It's hard to, there's all sorts of different possibilities. Okay. And then the points cards, well, that's a biggie. The points cards, right? You have the Optimum card. And every time you go to the drugstore, the Shoppers Drug Mart or whatever, or Rexall, you go in there and they say, do you have an Optimum card or do you have this card? And then if you are thinking about going to a store that doesn't have that card, maybe you'll change your mind. You go, no, I want to buy this shampoo. I want to buy this hair conditioner. I want to buy this hair color at a store that gives me points, right? So you'll walk past one that doesn't give you points to go into the one that gives you points. Okay, so those are all the different ways that manufacturers and stores try to incentivize you to buy, right? There's an online health product store. They keep sending me coupons, right? They say, we miss you. You haven't shopped here for a while. Here, take a percentage off or something. Or another a software company, actually, where I bought some software before. They say, use this code and you can get a discount on your next purchase. So all sorts of ways that they try and get you to come back. Okay. Now, here's one where, this is store money, right? So this is, Happy Hardware. This could be Canadian Tire, Home Hardware, whatever. So the example is that they offer store money. Okay. Now you have to read this carefully because there's a little catch to this. So they offer store money that can be used towards for future purchases at the store. The minimum purchase is $2.50, so that's one of the catches. Then you get the happy money. So if you go in and you buy something that costs $2, you don't get any happy money. Now, the amount is 2.5% of the total before taxes, and that's pretty typical, right? So if you buy you go in, you're going to buy a set of snowshoes for $100, right? The taxes it's going to be $113, but you're only going to get the store discount money on the purchase price, the $100. Okay. So the other catch, and this is, watch this. The store money is rounded to the nearest 5 cents. Okay, so be careful with that. So 2.5% of $35 is 87.5 cents, or 0.875 dollars, and they're going to round that to the nearest 5 cents. So they're going to round the 5 up. Okay, and we actually talked about that because that's something that I'm not that used to doing, rounding to the nearest 5 cents. Um, so in this case, the amount was 87.5, and what we want to say is that closer to um, uh, 90? Is that closer to this one or closer to that one? It's what did we say? It was 9 0, I think would be it. So are we rounding up or rounding down? And I guess what we decided is that we're going to round up. Yeah, because it's 7.5, right? Um, so it's just a little bit higher than 7, so we're going to round up. Okay, just make sure you round it to the nearest 5 cents. So now I was going to ask you a question. How much store money would you receive if you paid cash for $14.99 range? Now here again, typically you have to pay cash, or a debit card usually will work as well. But if you use your credit card, or if you use the Happy Money itself, or any other non-cash like purchase, then they're not going to give you the Happy Money. Okay, there's a reason for that. Certainly, when they sell you something and you use a credit card, they actually pay a fee to the credit card company, a percentage of the purchase, for that service. So they're not going to give you a discount in addition to paying that fee for your credit card. Okay. So to work out the example, then we have 2.5% of $14.99. Convert that to a decimal. You've done that before, and so we have 0.374, and that's going to be dollars, right? And so what they're saying, they're going to round it to the nearest 7 cents. Yeah, this is what I thought. So the 7 here is going to go down to the nearest 5. Okay, so 37 would be turned into 35. Okay, if you want to express that in cents, you just multiply the amount by 100, and then you get 35 cents in Happy Money. Okay, Canadian Tire money, that's the sort of thing, right? It looks like. Okay, and so we had a few examples of how to do this sort of thing. Okay, and a few examples here where we're rounding to the nearest 5 cents as well. Okay. Okay. Now, the other thing that you get is the points cards, and it's the same idea basically. You get, they give you a certain number of points for every dollar you spend. Airline points is another one. You can earn air miles or whatever, and so you can get that, that sort of thing. So in this case, let's say you buy a shirt for $45.99. And remember, we calculate these things, almost always going to calculate them on the pre-tax amount. We're not going to use the tax because they're not going to give you points for the government's cut for the tax part of it, right? Only the part where you actually spent money in the store for the goods. So $45.99, it's 50 points for every dollar, so you just multiply it out, right? Because this is 45 whole dollars and then 0.99 of a dollar. So if you multiply them together, it'll actually, the calculation will work out. And it's 2,299.5 points, which they're going to round up just to the nearest whole point. Okay, so just exactly like rounding money. All right. So, and then we worked a few examples of those. So I think we're pretty straightforward on those. Okay. Now, the other thing that we worked on here was converting Canadian money to U.S. money, and um, and then vice versa, right? And so you need to know the conversion factor. If you know what one Canadian dollar is in U.S., then all you do is you take the U.S. Um, you're you take the Canadian price, multiply it by the conversion factor, and you end up with US. Okay, and the way to remember that is that you have one Canadian equals some US, right? So if you have US, right, you have some US money times um, US. I'm sorry, let's try that again. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid doing. Um, so so the thing is that you have a certain amount of money in Canadian, right? Okay, so you have X Canadian dollars, right? I guess that was the wrong uh, variable to use. Let me try N, because we're going to need the time sign here. All right, so I have N Canadian dollars, and then I'm going to multiply it by the uh, exchange rate, okay? The conversion rate, okay? And it's the Canadian to US conversion rate equals, and then some amount in US, okay? So to go from Canadian to US, you need the one Canadian equals something US conversion rate. Okay, and you just multiply it, and it's pretty straightforward once you have it. Now, to go the other way, there's a couple ways to do it, and the I always advise, if you're actually going to do some conversions, to go to xe.com, pronounce it z.com. That's a currency conversion website. I've been using it for years. I like it because they have some ads around it, but they're not trying to sell you anything. And the main purpose of the site is to do these conversions. Okay, so I use it all the time. So if you went to z.com, you could end up, and you want to convert US to Canadian, right? Then you would find out what one US dollar was um, in Canadian, and then you would use that to multiply if you had a US amount to find out what it is in Canadian dollars. And really, this conversion, the second one, is the most valuable to you as a cross-border shopper or as an online shopper, right? So if I'm looking at a pair of snowshoes at MEC in Winnipeg, right, and then it's going to tell me how much they're in Canadian, right? Let's say they're $100 Canadian. Okay, so then I go online and I find the same snowshoe, and it's $90, right, US. So is that a good deal? It's less money, but is that still a good deal? So I would need to know what the current value of one US dollar was in Canadian, multiply that by the amount of the purchase, and then that would tell me how many Canadian dollars that is. Keeping in mind the chances are really good that you'll also pay shipping, and you'll also most likely pay 13% HST at the border, right? And plus, they often tack on a $6 convenience fee if you get it through the post office, which I think is kind of outrageous. But anyway, they do that. Okay, so it really has to be a fairly good bargain for it to be worthwhile. But some good bargains can be had, right? Because the Americans are a bigger market. They can sell their stuff cheaper. Okay. Your best bet, by the way, for something like that is to buy is U.S. made goods. That's where you'll get the bargain if you buy it in the States and import it versus Canadian. If you're trying to buy Chinese made goods or goods made outside of North America, chances are it's going to be a wash in terms of, the price in the States and the price in Canada. When you work out the exchange, will usually be about the same. Okay, so so what I've said is that if you really want to convert US to Canadian money, go to z.com, find out what $1 is in Canadian, multiply the US amounts by that. However, if you don't have that, or for the purposes of the course, if you have the one Canadian dollar equals some US amount, if you have this number, then all you do is you take the reciprocal of it. You divide it into 1, right? So it's 1 divided by that amount. Okay. Now, on your calculator, you may actually have a reciprocal button somewhere. And what it looks like usually is 1 over x. So what you do is you put the amount in your calculator and you press the 1 over x button. Okay. So if most scientific calculators have that somewhere on it, you can try using that. Try different ways. Try dividing it into 1, that amount, and then try the 1 over x button. Okay. So in this case, if I had, we have an amount 1 Canadian equals this 0.9218 US. So we want to know what 1 US is for Canadian. So we just go 1 and then divided by this number, which is the 9.218 right there. Okay, so this is 1 US equals. Okay, so this is the conversion factor, and now you can use it for any question where you're being asked for the Canadian price when you're given US. Okay, so the way to remember this is that if you're going from US to Canadian, then you need to know the 1 US dollar price. And if you're going from Canadian to US, then you need to know the 1 Canadian dollar price in US. Okay. If you get some questions like this on a final exam, make sure you use the conversion rates that they give you in each question. Don't assume if there's 2 questions that the conversion rates are the same. Okay. So here's an example where they're giving you, how much does an item that sells for. This is the US dollars, Canadian currency. So they're giving you the 1 Canadian equals US. So all you can do is do 0.9146, and that's basically going to be 1 US. Oops. And so that'll give you a number. We can work that out. 1.09337. So then we can write 1 US equals, yeah, exactly, 1.09337 Canadian. Okay, so notice that the US is now on the left. So if we multiply a US dollar amount by this number, we're going to get the Canadian amount. Okay, those can be a little confusing, but just you need to have the currency you're converting from on the left with your conversion factor. If you don't have that, if it's the other way around, take the reciprocal, divide it into 1, the amount into 1. Divide the conversion factor into 1, and then you'll have it. You'll be able to rewrite the conversion factor. Okay. All right, so we've done a few of those. If you're having some problems with that, or you're not real sure, I would suggest trying the support questions and then check in the back. Remember, at the end of each unit, the support question answers are there. Okay. So now our next lesson here is we talked about interest, and we've actually talked about simple interest. We've talked about compound interest. Okay, so when you're reading a question, if it says simple interest, then it's about simple interest. If it doesn't say simple interest, then it's compound interest. Okay. Now, when you are looking in the exam, you're given a couple of formulas, and the simple interest formula, I equals PRT, is given. The amount formula, A equals P plus I, is given. And the compound interest formula is also given. So A equals P times 1 plus I to the power n, and I equals A minus P, which is what we have to use for compound interest. Okay, so you have those formulas. They're given on the second page of the exam. Okay, so you can look at the exam and you'll have those on the second page. Now, unfortunately, you can't really take that page out because the chances are that there's the first questions on the other side of that page, but you'll be able to have that handy anyway in your exam. The thing is, it doesn't tell you what all these different numbers mean. Okay, so we're going to going to have to use that formula. Okay. Now, when we first started, we did a thing where we just kind of added interest and kind of looked at how it would build up. Okay. Remember that simple interest formula is I equals PRT. I equals P times R times T, and we need to know what each one of these things mean. Okay. The I is the interest rate, and the interest rate, the annual interest rate. Okay. Oops, let's back up a little bit here. And it has to be expressed as a decimal. So we go from a percentage to a decimal. Okay. And we talked about that a little bit in the previous review part anyway. Okay. Just you basically divide it by 100 to get the decimal. And if it has a fraction, you have to first convert the fraction into a decimal amount. So if it's 4.25%, then you have to take the quarter, and that's 0.25, so then it's 4.25. Then you divide that by 100. Okay. Okay, so yeah, here is example in the support question. So if you're having some problems with that, you can try those support questions. Okay. Studying for an exam is all about looking for questions that you think are going to give you trouble. It's not for studying and practicing questions that you know how to do. Okay, studying for an exam is all about looking through the course material, looking for questions that look a little unfamiliar, look a little scary to you. Maybe they gave you some difficulty when you were going through it, and trying them again. Okay, and it's looking through the feedback that you've got, your assignments, and really flip through them, because it's one thing to see that you got, say, 88% on an assignment, but it's quite another thing to go through that assignment and see where you lost your marks. Okay, is there something you're doing? Are you forgetting to put units on your answers? Are you making little arithmetic mistakes? Right? So it's important. What you're trying to do is get the maximum number of marks possible. That should always be your goal. Right? Get the maximum number of marks possible. Now, if you're going through your review and there's one that you just can't get, right? You can always contact me, of course. But if it's one or two things, I wouldn't worry about it too much, right? As long as you do your review, you'll be comfortable and you'll be able to do most of it. Okay, that's really what you're looking for. Okay, you want to get yourself in the best possible position to solve as many as possible. One or two on an exam is not going to make or break you. Okay, you just do what you can. Okay, and that's true if you open up the exam and you find a question that you don't know how to do. Leave it to the end, do all the other ones, then come back to it, and just do anything you can there. Even if you have to sort of explain some stuff in words, you might be able to get some marks out of that. Okay. Now, sometimes when we're doing the I equals PRT, T is in years. So if the length of the investment with simple interest isn't a whole year, or it's partial, it's a year and apart, sometimes we have to have a fraction for the years. So in this case, if we have an investment that's 20 weeks, what we do is we convert that into a fraction of a year by dividing by the number of weeks in a year, 52, and we get 0.38, and that's what we would use for our T. So in the case where the investment is specified in days, we would just divide it by 365, the number of days in a year. Now, don't let this throw you. If they gave you 600 days, you can still do the same thing, and then your number would be 1 point something or other. Okay? So don't let that throw you off if the number of days or weeks or months or whatever is more than the number in a year, like this one, 18 months. You can still divide it by 12, and you get 1.5 years. If it happened to be an even multiple of 12 months, so if it was 24 months, you get 2 years, and then your t would be 2, right? But all you're doing here is you're converting a fraction of a year, or sorry, a number of months, a number of days, number of weeks, into a fraction of a year, or multiple years. Okay, so you can try some of those. Here's a good example of one where it's way more than 1 year. It looks like that's going to be closer to 3 point some odd years, right? Okay, so it's just the total number that you have of whatever it is divided by the number that are in a year. So 365 days in a year, 1,095 days. It's exactly 3 years. Cool. Okay. So I saw I quickly divided by 300, but of course it's 365. So there you go. So 3 years. And so then in this case, our T, if this was an investment, would be 3. Okay. So be on the lookout for that sort of thing. Okay. And so then we did quite a bit of work on a simple interest calculation. So, I'm gonna assume that that's going to be all right. In this case, here's a good example of a fractional year. So it's 10 months. So our T, which is 10 months, we have to convert that to years. Whatever you end up with, okay, it has to be in measured in years. So 10 over 12, and you're going to say, but wait, you didn't simplify the fraction. Yes, we're doing high school math. We're not doing elementary math. There's no need for us to simplify the fraction. You can if you want, but there's absolutely no need to do it. Okay. So now when we're working out I equals PRT, we're just going to multiply all the numerators across. Okay, so in a case like this, it's going to be 500 times 0.075 times 10, and then divided by 12. Divide that whole thing by 12. Okay, that works out no problem to do it that way. Okay, so for simple interest, we're finding the interest. And then if we want to know the amount, we're going to have to use that second formula, which was A equals P, the principal, plus I, the interest. Okay, so we're going to have to add that up because we calculate the I, we're usually given the P, and then we can work out the amount. Okay. Now that's different from compound interest, because in compound interest, what we actually get is the amount. Okay, so you got to be careful that you understand that you get the, that for compound interest, it's the A. Okay. Now, okay, so I think we're pretty well doing all right here. Okay. Try a few of these, and you should have some feedback from your key questions anyway. Okay. Now, the next part I think was the Excel, where we did the Excel. So really, we didn't. There's not really going to be anything on this on the final exam, because this was kind of an in-class activity. Okay. But you will certainly encounter some problems about compound interest. So let's just skip forward to the next lesson where we actually look at the compound interest. Okay. So this is lesson 9, and one of the things, whoops, we had to make sure that you knew how to use your exponent button, because you need to do exponents when you're calculating compound interest. Okay, so you should be good at that by now. You might want to review that though before you go and do the exam. Try a few of these questions. Now, knowing the number of compounding periods in a year is important. That is a fairly common mistake that I see in the compound interest, where they'll say it's monthly is easy, right? It's 12 times a year, but they'll say it's semi-annually, which is twice a year, and then people kind of get confused there. What it means is that you have to adjust your I and your N by the number of compounds per year. Okay. So let's see if we can find a few of these. Okay. See, in this case, the loan is compounded monthly. So you really have to be careful about this. N is the number of compounds per year times the number of years. So monthly, you're going to be multiplying by 12. But if it was semi-monthly, then it would be 24, because that's twice a month. If it was weekly, then it would be 52. If it was semi-annually, that's twice a year, so it would just be 2. It would be 2 times 3. You would only have 6 compounds, not 36. Okay, so make really sure that you read the question and that you use the number of compounds per year. Okay, the I is the other one, right? We're so used to dividing the annual interest rate, we turn it into a decimal. We're so used to dividing it by 12 because everything seems to be compounded monthly, that when they give us a question like this where it's compounded quarterly, we sometimes use the wrong number. In this case, it's compounded quarterly, which means that we're going to take I, well, okay, it's already over here, where I say I is 0.12, which is the interest rate expressed as a decimal, divided by 4, which is the number of compounds per year. Okay. Okay, so when you're doing a compound interest question, the number of compounding interest compounds per year is going to appear in 2 places. It's going to appear in your I, right? You're going to divide your I by the number of compounds, and it's going to appear in your N. You're going to multiply the number of years by the number of compounds per year. Okay, so double check that when you're doing this. Here's one where it's semi-annually. Okay, and so your I is going to be divided by 2, and your N, so they don't give us enough information to calculate N, but it's going to be something multiplied by 2, the number of compounds per year. Okay, so you can go through and try some of these support questions. Just do a few if you're not real sure, if you're a little concerned about your memory of this. Okay. Now, as far as I can see, the final exam, there's not a lot, like there's not trick questions on it. Some of these questions in the course material, in the key questions, are kind of tricky, I have to admit. I don't see anything that looks like a trick question in the final exam. They're all just straight up, calculate, testing what you learned in the course on pretty straightforward type questions, stuff you've seen before, stuff you'll find in the examples, stuff you'll find in the support questions. Okay. Okay, so if you're not real sure about calculating the compound interest formula, you can try a few of these. Like you could try that example. Okay, semi-monthly is pretty good, right? Semi-monthly, what's that going to be? I think I wrote 26 at one point. Semi-monthly is going to be 24, twice a month. Okay. 26 would be bi-weekly, so I don't know why I put that in there. It's a nice thing about math, though, right? You make a mistake, you can always go back and fix it. Cross stuff out, write something else in. Okay. Okay. And then I tried to show you here how I work out compound interest, the amount. I do that division first, then I add 1, okay? Then I do the exponent, and then finally I multiply that result by the P, the principal. Okay, so it's a little bit backwards, but it saves you from having to type everything into your calculator more, repeatedly, because that's a big source of error. People typing things into the calculator, and if you think about it, I don't know if you text very much on your phone, but if you try texting on your phone and you realize how many mistakes you make that maybe autocorrect fixes or your spell checker on your phone corrects. So if you think about how many mistakes you make texting, and then you realize that people are using their calculator on these tests and on these assignments, and pretty much making the same number of mistakes when they're mashing numbers into the calculator. So we try and minimize the number of times you have to enter numbers you already calculated in there to minimize the number of mistakes. Okay. Okay. And it's a sort of a word to be a little more careful when you're typing stuff into your calculator. I personally would not use the thumb typing method if when I'm using a calculator, even if it's on my phone. Use your index finger. Make sure the phone's flat on the table, and make sure it's immediately below. Like make sure you're looking straight down on it, not off to the one side, because it's very easy to hit the wrong button. Um, because the buttons are small, and if the device is off to the side, you may not realize you're hitting the wrong button. Okay. All right. Okay. So now remember that you calculate A when you're doing the compound interest formula. And so in order to work out I, remember that A equals P plus I. So in compound interest, we always calculate the A. We usually know the P. So to calculate the I, we basically have to say A minus P equals I. Or you could flip that around and say I equals A minus P. I'm pretty sure that that is actually given to you on page 2 of the exam, this formula right here. And that formula. Look at that. Okay. So now the final exam is closed book, closed notes, but because we're giving you stuff like that, it shouldn't be quite the ordeal. Um, if you had to memorize all those formulas, it might be a little scarier. Certainly be scarier for me. I don't like memorizing stuff if I can get away with it. Prefer to look things up. Okay, that's why we have the internet. That's why we have the phone nowadays. Put everything you need to know on your phone. Okay. So, and oh yeah, and of course you have to write that final exam at the Learning Center. So you just talk to your DEC, get them to get a copy of the exam from me, and then you just arrange a time you go in. I give yourself a couple hours to do it. Don't rush. And then you go in and you do it. Okay. I don't think there's even really a time limit, but don't spend 3 hours at it. It's not worth it. Okay, so I think we pretty much have covered most of this. There might be a little bit left on Unit 2. Let's see, what do we got? We got one more for what do we got? Oh, banking transactions. Okay, so we can look at that on Wednesday. So I'll have to make myself a little note here somewhere. Banking transactions, Wednesday. Okay. So what we'll do, we're going to wrap this up now. When we come back tomorrow, this is pre-recorded, but I'm saying tomorrow is in Wednesday. When we come back tomorrow, we'll wrap up lesson 10. We'll take a look at unit 3. Keep in mind that we're spending more time in the first couple of units rather than the last one, because you're probably pretty familiar with unit 4 by now. All right. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll wrap this up, and so we'll see you back live tomorrow.